Good afternoon. Welcome to our Board of Education meeting. We call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. If we could all just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Turn it over to the roll call.
Mrs. Gillen,
Here.
Mr. Pascal,
Here.
Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Mrs. Dion,
Here.
Mrs. Carey, here, Mr. Annaly,
Yeah.
and Mr. Nolan.
Excuse. We're going to start off tonight with our budget and operations update. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. O'Shea.
Thank you. So as always, if you have any questions, please email us, comment at BOE.
comment.
BOE Center. So first of all, BOE comment at Cohoes. So the first picture in recognition of our senior athletes for cross-country runners, we have Janiyah Smith and Michaela O'Brien. We're happy that our students got a chance to compete, and we're thankful for all our coaches, our unpaid coaches, for making this possible. So thank you. Our center photo features Harmony Health third grader Lucas Santoro. Lucas recently led an effort to raise more than $2,400 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. As you may recall, this annual fundraiser was inspired by Lucas. In previous years, they raised money through Stuck for a Buck, where Lucas and Mr. Perry were taped to the wall. Lucas hopes he's able to bring this back in the near future. And the last photo is Mrs. Keogh's fifth grade class at Ava Lansing. This week, students were working on a vocabulary project as part of their unit on water filtration. So some updates. The vaccination clinic will be at Cohoes High School for students 16 years or older, Friday, April 23rd, and then follow up Friday, May 14th from 9 to noon. We currently have 56 students signed up. We do have room for more. So we've been continuing to send out updates and phone blasts and parent square messages. So we hope students continue to sign up. I know we talked about staff Chromebook distribution a little bit. I wanted to let you know that we were able to provide all of our staff grades 2 through high school with Chromebooks. So we knew we would be able to do middle and high, but we were able to go down to grade 2. So for next school year, we'll start off the year and make sure the teachers in kindergarten and first grade have to do Chromebooks as well. But they're pretty powerful. I can tell the difference on meetings, and so we're happy with them. And then there were some questions about things involving paving and some other things. So Stacy is going to just provide a brief update on some spring and summer projects.
Okay, so there's spring projects. We first priority is the athletic fields, getting them ready for the season. So that's been the first priority. We've also had some paving needs identified, so we're working on quotes for that. It's going to require 3 separate quotes because of the threshold, but so that's a work in progress. We've also we're working with Rick Timms on the final cost reports for the middle school roof and the Harmony Health boiler. Those reports are due June 30, so we'll have those completed in time. And playground inspections, refreshing the mulch is also a priority for facilities. And then we'll start the planning process for summer school, identifying which buildings will have programs and which rooms will be needed for the summer school programming. In addition, we'll start the discussions about what the classrooms will look like for next school year over the summer. And we continue our work on the capital project, which will be a referendum next May. We did have a safety meeting, and we talked about the building condition survey and what items were identified in the building condition survey. I also have updated the RFP for construction manager. I'm waiting for CSR to get back to me on the timeline for that, but that RFP will be ready to go very shortly. So the construction manager will partner with CSR, and then we're collaboratively with Rick Timms on the long-term project, make sure that the estimates are the best numbers that they possibly can be to avoid any substantial unplanned expenses along the way. Also, food services, we've had a grant this year. So you'll see on the agenda, there is a piece of fund balance. You know, the food service fund balance is healthy. So we're working with CSR on a bid for dishwashers, so that'll be over the summer as well. And we have a cargo van that'll be used. I don't think we'll have it in time for the summer, but the idea was to have it for the summer and for the smaller inventory needs between each school, so that we don't have to use the large box truck each time. So that's the idea for that. So that's on tonight's agenda. Portion will be paid out of the fund balance for cafeteria.
I just wanted to piggyback on something Stacy said. So in planning for next school year, we're not sure if it will be 3 feet apart or 6 feet from the teacher, or if it'll be, you know, none of those recommendations. So what we're doing is looking at our classes and modeling so that we're prepared for whatever type of guidance. So for example, high school, following the 3 feet guidance, some of our rooms can fit 21 students, some of our rooms can only fit 18 students. We're going to be looking at this at the middle school as well, just so that we, you know, we'll be doing more scheduling based on both capacities, and so that we can start alternative planning in case that happens.
Can I just ask a couple questions? So you had mentioned the cost reporting for the boiler and the roof. The status of those projects are complete, and so that came from the capital reserve that we had expended and we had approved.
Yes.
And now we're just going through the final stages of making sure that those reimbursements are going to happen through state ed.
Yes. And we're working with Tim's to make sure that we're maximizing all those reimbursements, making sure we're getting every penny that is due to us. So there was data that I submitted to him probably maybe 6 weeks or so ago. He needs a couple of follow-up items, so I'll give that information to him, and we'll have him plenty of time for June 30. Both projects did come in under the budget. Once the final cost reports are finalized, then I'll share those with you. It's a little bit over 200,000, so that will anything that we spend out of those reserves has to be approved by the voters. So we can identify that while we're planning for the long-term project, and that'll save us from having to borrow that for the more substantial project. But about 200,000 we get.
And then the question on the buildings and grounds, the prioritizing of fields and repairs that we need. So just curious, do we have the groundskeeper back in his position?
We do.
Okay, and so he's prepared to at least get the athletic fields to where they need to be.
Yeah. We do have several open positions still though in the district, and one of those positions is a custodial position, so we do struggle there. It's also a struggle because we terminated the reading and swimming contract.
That was my next question.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a challenge. I did talk to Justin actually this morning. He does have some thoughts on what he would like to do. In some places where we have mulch, perhaps it would be better if we had stone. So then we wouldn't have to weed and prune those areas as frequently. So he's got some ideas. We have to cost those projects out, see how expensive it would be, see if we could do it in the current year budget. But so it's only really the discussion as far as weeding and pruning right now. But athletics, I haven't heard any complaints about everything around us. But I do know that initially they started with the schools that had turf fields, so they started, so I'm not sure how many home contests we've had, which is maybe why it's been silent, but it's towards the end of April, so hopefully things are in good shape.
So with the shortages that we have in the custodial areas, do you feel like we are going to be in a good place to be able to maintain the buildings? Because, you know, every year springtime comes around and, you know, we have pride in how the buildings look and the appearance of our grounds and all of those things. And so I just want to, you know, kind of get an idea of where we are and if we think we're going to be able to manage it. Like I said, I know we terminated that contract and for good reason. We had to do that. And, you know, I don't know if it's something that Jim might be able to come in and give us kind of, you know, what his thoughts are, where he sees the spring. You know.
Sure, we can ask him to do that. I will tell you that we have one school in particular where we've struggled. We've had some holes in the cleaning staff. And so we have one school that we've struggled with. Which we know is problematic. The summer will be very challenging depending on what type of summer programs we offer and which buildings we're offering them in. And also adding the addition of what does the classroom look like and what does the furniture need to look like. So there's a lot of moving parts. There certainly are concerns. I know that Jim has spoken to our high school principal about any graduating seniors that might be interested in working over the summer. So that would be great if we could have some substitutes over the summer before kids go off to college. That would be ideal. So, and also I know that HR has looked into historically, we have advertised and there's a bundle package, if you will, on monster.com, because we're really struggling in professional areas as well, not just support staff. So food service is struggling, our buildings and grounds is struggling to fill vacancies and hire subs, our professional staff, our teaching staff. So it's really across the board. So we're looking into advertising through that bundle package again, and hopefully getting some candidates that would join the team.
But in the meantime, those are posted on our website. If anybody's, those custodial positions, grounds, any of those things are posted.
But they're on our
Are they
website.
open for submission or?
So we did bill one,
Okay.
but the person self-term within a week, so that's not ideal. So yep, we have to go back to the drawing board. So yes, work on progress, but certainly not ideal situation. John will tell you it's not an ideal situation,
Okay,
but he's not alone.
right. No, totally get that. I mean, this is the world that we're living in right now, and I understand.
Yeah.
I think it would be beneficial for all of us just to have an idea of, even if it's a limited plan, of knowing, you know, that our resources are limited and the work that can be accomplished, and understanding what the priorities are for us to be able to communicate out to the community. You know, one of the things that we're talking about are the potholes. Obviously, you know, we come off the winter and every year we're in upstate New York, this happens and we have potholes that we need to deal with. So just for us as a board to just understand what the priorities are and maybe a timeline would be good. We all recognize that we have areas to fill and we're shorthanded, and, you know, not to stress anybody out or to feel like they have to do everything all at once, but just for us to have an idea that we can share out with the people in the community that we talk to, so.
Absolutely.
I just also wanted to, before we go into the proposed budget, let you know that we're beginning, and I mentioned this briefly last time, to plan our end of the year activities. I can tell you that the first activity that we're planning right now is both National Junior Honor Society and National Honor Society induction. We're looking at, we know that our students from last year missed their induction ceremony. So Dan and Laura and our National Honor Society advisors, Fallon Jennings and Cheyenne, are planning splitting the ceremony, where last year's students would be in one ceremony, this year's students would be another, and we'd be following the social distance guidelines and being able to have them some more information to follow on that. That will be sent to the parents. That'll be late May, and then we'll have more updates about our June activities, but I did want to let you know that we are proceeding with specifics for each activity. So now the proposed budget.
So this is really just a recap. The next time we meet will be the formal budget hearing, and so I'll have all of the information that we've discussed in the past several months. This is a shorter version of our prior presentation. So the 21-22 proposed budget is the $43,636,917. It is a decrease over the current year budget of just over 230,000, about a 0.5% decrease. So this is a new slide. This is a 5-year historical trend for the overall budget. So starting year 17-18 through the proposed budget. So a 5-year average is just about 1%, which really in the current year, 2021 school year, we did propose a 0% increase. And we had to make a lot of efficiencies and reductions in order to do that. And then this year, similar, we had a zero-based budget approach, really identifying what are the regulatory items that are required and what are the essential needs of the district in order to operate. And that's what is included in this proposed budget. So this just really shows how the district has really managed costs over the 5-year term and made reductions in efficiencies wherever feasible in order to try to keep costs down. So the 3-part budget is a requirement for the budget hearing, but I thought we would talk about it tonight briefly, and then obviously that's included in the budget hearing presentation, but it's 3 parts. So obviously the largest piece of the operating budget is programs. So that's really our teaching and our pupil services. So our health professionals, our guidance, speech, etc. Their salaries and benefits, and then it's the instructional materials, including textbooks and equipment, the extracurricular program that we offer, which would include athletics, and then our BOCES programmatic costs and transportation costs. So that's 73% of the overall budget, using round numbers here. The next largest piece of the pie is 17% are capital expenditures. So that would be our salaries and our benefits for our maintenance and our custodial staff. It also would include the principal payments on our bonds, which are obviously how we make improvements on our buildings for facilities projects. And then it also includes our utilities and our insurance, our liability insurance. The smallest piece of the pie is our administrative costs, which is 10% of the total budget. So administrative costs include our administrators and our clerical staff, salary and benefits. It also includes professional and curriculum development costs, central data processing, so IT, our auditing, and our legal fees.
So to go over some of the budget highlights again, at the high school, the AIM Academy, point for school counselor to bring back to the 1.0, the ARC transitions, the 1.0 contract, after school assistance program for students who are struggling, and then summer school. You know, we've done these for a number of meetings and we show the needs assessments and through the return of investment process, these are what are in the budget. Any questions about the high school? At the middle school, again, 0.6 school counselor to bring to a 1.0, a specialized tier reading teacher, which would enable students with disabilities and students who need academic intervention support to receive services, and then special class math at a 0.2 and behavior support at a 0.2. Any middle school questions? And then at the elementary, Abram Lansing, 2 special education teachers, a new model where academic intervention services teachers, the positions would become special education teachers, allowing one per grade level, AIS provider at Harmony Health and then Skype, and then a music teacher. 0.0, we, because of the virtual model, we were able to reduce that position this year, but in order to offer secondary music, we need to bring back the elementary music position. And Stacey.
So the tax cap calculation, we talked about this. Our maximum allowable tax levy this year is just over 17 million. It is a 6.8% increase. The reason for the increase really is attributed to the Brookfield pilot. So Brookfield is a business located in Cohoes. It had a pilot agreement, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So they were exempt property. And that exemption has expired. And so Brookfield will now be added to the property tax roll. They will contribute to the tax levy. So really the takeaway from this chart is the tax rate. So if you look at the estimated tax rate for 21-22, you'll see it's 37.91. In the current year is 37.57. So that's less than a 1% increase on the tax rate. So what that means for a homeowner with a property with an assessed value of $150,000, it's just over $2 a month, about $26 a year. So it's a very affordable proposal. Again, that 6.8 is attributed mainly to the Brookfield. And they will contribute in the tax levy through the tax collection process and the invoicing process. Are there any questions on that? All right, so this is new. We haven't talked about this yet. So the contingency budget. So what happens if the budget is defeated? We would have a contingency budget, and in a contingency budget, you are not allowed to grow your tax levy. So we would not receive the additional revenues through the tax levy. So it's significant this year. So we would have to appropriate use of reserves and fund balance. It's not included in the proposed budget. A little bit more than 500,000. That is not in line with our long-range plans whatsoever. It would be taking many steps backwards instead of taking steps forward to our financial wellness. So it would be an unfortunate situation. What is allowable under a contingent budget it's legal expenses, statutory expenses, and basically anything that's required in order to maintain our educational programs and preserve health and safety of the students. So in other words, that's what our budget is, right? We started at a zero base and then we only included category 1s and 2s. That's exactly what we've included. So there's not a lot of places for us to look in order to make reductions. So really what it would mean, a contingent budget would mean no extracurricular activities for us. Because everything else is programs that we require to meet the needs of our students. It would also be district-wide reductions in instructional materials, supplies, equipment, conferences. And, it would be a very bad year for the budget to go down. This is an important year for the budget to be approved.
So Stacy, that 575,000 in reductions, which is from the tax levy. So that increase of 6.8% because of the Brookfield, that tax levy is the 575.
Yeah, plus the 500,000 in use of fund balance and reserves. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So those two things combined would be required in a contingent budget. It would be a very bad situation.
We never want to go to contingent. We
No,
really don't want to
especially
go
this
this
year.
year.
Yes, especially this year, yes. All right, so next steps. So the next time we meet, we'll talk, we'll have the presentation, the formal presentation for the budget hearing. It'll basically be all of our presentations that we've had. It's a long one, I apologize in advance, but it's all of our presentations that we've had for the past several months, all wrapped into one. And I'll also talk about where we're looking this year, because likely we'll be able to fund our ERS, TRS reserve in June this year, which is great news for us. We're still purchasing because we unfroze. Once we started to get some cash in February, March, we opened up the spending. So we're getting in some materials and supplies. And we're not quite done encumbering those monies yet. So this month will be the month to encumber, then I'll be able to have a calculation for you guys. So next time we meet, to give you an idea of where I think we're going to end up at year end. And actually on the property tax report card, you'll see the reserves are all listed, and you'll see I estimated 500,000 to be able to add into ERS, TRS, but I'll have a better picture the next time we meet and all the encumbrances are in. So that's good news. Great news. Yeah. And then the week of May 5th, we'll send out the budget notice and work with Erin on that. And then May 18th is the actual budget vote, and we have 2 seats up this year. And then we'll approve the results the following day, so on May 19th.
So typically within our timeline is presentations to community and stakeholder groups. Is anything like that still happening virtually, or is it, basically all being held within the meeting, within these meetings?
So there are some groups that we presented to in the past that we will be reaching out to. I know some of them have moved their meetings to Zoom, so we'll be exploring. And we also have started conversations. We typically go to the faculty meetings as well and having discussions about what would make the most sense in terms of that. In terms of getting the information out internally and then exploring it.
And you can just keep us posted on what that's going to look like. Yeah. I just want to make sure I point people in the right direction if they have an opportunity that they want to participate. Like you said, it's a really important year for us to make sure that we don't go to contingency. So as many people as we can push in the direction of how we're going to advertise this or give notice out to residents what the plan is. It'd just be good for us to be able to communicate out. So. And then on the election, I know that we had a change in being able to use the election machines again this year. Can you just remind me if there was any changes as far as the mail-in situation? So there still is mail-in, but it has to go through the old process of requesting, and there are certain requirements that need to be met to mail in. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what happened last year should just be erased from everyone's memory.
Okay.
So yes, it's, the mail-ins can happen, like they've had historically, so there's no longer a drop box available. And of course, drop off day out by 5 o'clock.
And they can still request like they do. We have an application that you request an absentee ballot. And it's usually because you're out of town or you're in the hospital or jury duty. Now they've got COVID. So it can be a reason to get a ballot, but they have to do the same procedure we've always done in the past.
And is there a deadline to request an absentee ballot if they're
Yep, there's deadlines. They're all on
On the
website?
Yeah,
Okay.
on the website.
If it's a scenario, I'm
And
just,
they can even come in the day before to my office and say, I would like one. They can fill it out there and give it to me. They still have till 5 o'clock that night.
Okay.
Instead of emailing it.
we were still having conversations about amounts of people that are still in like a mandatory quarantine situation.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious to know, like, what happens when you're in that situation? You haven't applied for an absentee ballot, still want to vote, but you can't. So I didn't know if there was
Yeah, they
any,
can do
anything
that.
put
They
in
can walk
place.
right into me and ask me for it. And they'll just sit down, fill it out, and then it just goes over to the polls like they always do. So
So if they're in quarantine, they won't be able to see, to come in.
right, oh, that's right. They could fill it out right outside the door. And I'll come get it. So, and I haven't got one application yet, a request for an application yet.
So we can look into too, because if this person is not able to leave their house, I'm not sure what the process is, but we can.
They're on the permanent disabled list.
we can
I still mailed
request.
them out this year, 350 of us.
Okay, all right. Trying to think ahead.
Yeah.
I think last year we did it the last minute with, hey, you need to go get envelopes, and maybe it might even have already been ordered for envelopes. I don't know.
We ordered extra envelopes this year too, because
And
we
who
weren't
knows?
sure what to expect. Yeah.
Right, like we could get a message next week changing
Right,
everything.
Yes.
So I totally get that. I just didn't in my mind know if there was something that had already come out where.
So we have a cover over the lock, the drop box, so it's covered right now, so, hopefully nobody attempts, to drop that in, so maybe we'll just update the
And
website.
if anybody else
on
should
the
just call the or
Right.
Okay.
we'll make sure they get one.
So on tonight's agenda is obviously the board's action to approve the budget and the property tax report card. I did hand out the budget pamphlet, and all that information goes on the district website right after this meeting. So it's the line item budget, the expenses and the revenues, it's a property tax report card. It's the school budget notice, administrative compensation, and then the list of current year exemptions.
It's all your hard work from the last couple of months. We recognize that. The big packet.
Can we circle back one more time to the person in quarantine? We're not clear on that to people right now. If all of a sudden, this is not clear right now, so,
Maybe
reach
out to legal.
We need to find out.
okay.
We need to find out.
So there's no answer, we aren't giving an answer right now on what they do if they're in quarantine.
If it comes up suddenly, right?
If it comes out suddenly,
Yeah, right.
or they know within the,
If they
10 days.
deadlines, then it's fine.
We're not planning on coming in to vote in person on the 18th, and then on the 16th or the 17th, you get something saying you have to quarantine.
Right,
Now, what you do is you can't do the mail-in,
right.
you've not got time, you can't go to the office. We're
correct,
gonna have to work out a way for those people to call us,
yes.
and then probably hand deliver them.
I was gonna say.
I want to make sure people actually be able to
Hand deliver it.
I was gonna volunteer you to do that.
Well, I was here on the last year.
Well, and honestly, I just brought it up because I feel like, being proactive and trying to figure out if, I don't know if anything was released or not, so that's why.
I haven't.
We delivered lunches, materials.
Exactly.
That's a good place.
Anybody have any other questions on the budget presentation or on operations update? We don't have any public comment on the presentation itself, so I can just move into board discussion of agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss?
Just like to thank again our volunteer coaches for this time, some budget and started. And they all know how much work is involved. And I have to particularly thank Paul Wheeler for coming back yet again. And I don't know how long he's done this, but so if you're ready.
It's probably far more than our members can recall.
Here he is still, we saw the value of all his years of service. I can't imagine how many kids he's touched and he's back again and doing it as a volunteer. So we can't thank Paul enough.
Just a reminder, any questions can be sent to voe.comment@cohoes.org. I had just one question on the 21-22 school year calendar. I didn't really dig into it. I assume you guys, did your due diligence. My only question was on the teacher, the parent-teacher conference days. So we increased that to 3. Like recently within a year or the year prior, before that, it was 2. And then before that was 4. So I'm just curious to know, how that's going. I know that we're in a different environment right now, but if we think the 3 is sufficient and how that's working out, because as far as I understand it, it was pretty much everybody gets a conference in the fall. And then anybody who requests for at-risk students in the springtime.
And that's exactly how it works. We do work with a budget committee to develop a budget comprised of teachers from the Post Teacher Association. And so we discussed, they did not come up as that we need an additional, I think as long as in the March date that, students are struggling, teachers do reach out and then need to. I think this year they were all virtual, and in some cases that helped in terms of for parents who could do this from homework and make it right after work, et cetera. So I think that would be something we would have discussions, about for next year. We would have discussions about what will work, but I believe that this would be sufficient. But you're correct, it was 4 to 3, and maybe
We're still 3. Okay, we're good. Okay. Just curious to know if that was something that we looked at, so. Any other questions on agenda items? Just gonna check and see if you have any community questions for agenda. Yeah, we'll do. That happened. Okay, I see no questions here from the community for discussion of agenda items. So can I get a motion that we approve the consent agenda, the Board of Education adopts the following resolutions of April 21st, 2021 agenda, 6A through H, 7A through H, and 9A.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Pascal,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dion,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Annaly.
Yes.
With that, the consent agenda has been approved. And any other comments or questions that the board would like to address that are non-agenda type items? Of course, that one thing, sorry. So one of the things, a lot of times, working in collaboration with other school districts, you get an experience of maybe what some other people are doing. And one of the things that has been brought up is looking at some of the things that worked really well during this pandemic period. And just what Peg was referred to and perfect segue into what I wanted to bring up is looking at the things that are working for us and are giving us more exposure to parents and parents more exposure to us. And I'm curious to know if you guys have thought, now I know that budget has been absolute priority. But we are gearing up towards the end of the year and we're going to have a lot of things moving and shaking. And I know that looking at the regulations, I know everything's going to look different as far as what a classroom is, whether we can get back to the 3 feet or back in person completely or how that, whatever that scenario works out to be. I'm just wondering, as a district, if we have investigated or thought about investigating through either teacher or student or parent survey, things that might be going well and that they like, that we might be able to continue if we're allowed to.
So I can tell you that some of this is happening at faculty meetings, because I happened to be joining a faculty meeting recently. This one was high school faculty meeting. I believe the middle school did something like this as well, where those exact questions were asked by the principal to the faculty. So, and it was a very good template that we could work from. So I do think they're definitely valuable information to ask students, teachers, parents. That is something that's been starting at a smaller level, but we definitely include it at a bigger level. There's typically a survey that we do every year, so we can look at that and include some of that as part of the survey.
Okay. And I don't, again, not trying to create the work, and if the board is not interested in that, certainly feel free to speak up. I just, collectively thinking about, some of the, me working in another district and having experience with colleagues, sometimes it's helpful to know what other people are doing too, and I just thought it might be a good opportunity, good timing. So.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Anybody else have any other comments or concerns to bring up? Okay, we don't have any more public comments, so dates for future meetings, May 5th. Actually, can I go back? Because we were going to have a conversation about potential in-person meetings. Is that something that we wanted to talk about, discuss, to see what limits we have investigated before?
So
Okay.
at the last meeting, we did discuss moving to the high school cafeteria. And next week, Sylvie and Erin are going to do a kind of a test run there to look at the sound, how it would work. In terms of the setup, we would then set it up so that we could see what is the capacity that we could potentially handle. I know the overall capacity of the high school is 220, but that's under normal conditions. So that's part of our plan next week. And then the question would be, we would get the information out there. The question would be, what would the timeline that to listen?
Is the general consensus that we would like to offer some in-person option?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Chat about that, yes.
Sorry, it was.
No, I know. I was just saying, yeah, the general consensus was that, as I recall, with social distancing and the frenzy somehow.
So is it something, for the next board meeting or the one after? I mean, researching and having information that we can. So it's just
Okay. Great, and then if we do decide to transition that way, just advertise.
We'll work with communication. There will be attestations that anyone who, enters has to follow. We'll come up with a process. I know that Joanna and I had started talking about this a while ago, and then things changed. So we'll just
Right.
we'll revisit our notes and go from there.
Great. So dates for future meetings, May 5th, the public budget hearing meeting live stream at 6 p.m. May 18th, the annual budget vote and election at all elementary schools from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. May 19th, Board of Education meeting live streamed at 6 p.m. So now if I could get a motion to enter in exec session at 6:50. Is it B to discuss matters leading to appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation that are. Okay, yeah, sounds good. It's a lot of words. Anyone check?
That's all. It's not a joke.
Then we have Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Pascal,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dion,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
and Mr. Annaly. Sorry.
On that note, we'll close the meeting. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
See you here.
Wait.